Hey everybody, it's Julie, Kansas City girl in a Colorado world, and I have a special edition Flosstube for you. I have been wanting to record this for well over a month, if not close to 2 months. I wanted to record a Flosstube basically just about cross-stitch involving books and literature. I have, since I started cross-stitching, I've collected patterns related to literature, such as like Jane Austen patterns, Lord of the Rings, and I've been drawn to patterns like that. Like a lot of those you can find on Etsy, especially like Harry Potter patterns. But I also will buy patterns that are just bookish in general, even if it's not related to a specific book series. And I started to realize I was getting quite a collection. And then I was like thinking, someday I have this dream of having a craft room / library. And I was thinking, how fun would it be if I filled that room with cross-stitch that is related to literature? Which then made me go buy a bunch more patterns because I could justify it. I was like, wow, I need to stitch that for someday for my library that I'm going to have someday. So I had already amassed quite a collection, and then I went a little crazy and bought even more. So that got me thinking, like, okay, I have enough here to do a whole video just devoted to books and literature and cross-stitch. So this is cross-stitch for book lovers, and I know there are a lot of you out there. There are several Flosstubers who make a point to discuss what they're reading and talk about books on their channels. There are many of you. I somehow just never went down that rabbit hole. I read a lot, and my videos were tending to be long enough that I just didn't feel like I wanted to add another component of, like, oh, okay, and let me talk to you about books now. Cause like, I just didn't want to do that. So, that said, I love those segments of other Flosstubers videos when they're like, and now books. I'm like, ooh, yay. I love to hear about it. I haven't really fallen down the rabbit hole of, there's something called Booktube, which is, just like Flosstube. It's YouTube for books, where people just talk about what they're reading, what they're wanting to read, what's coming out. Like, it's a whole thing, and I've tried to actually avoid it because I can't even keep up with all my Flosstube, and I don't want to have another thing that like I can't keep up with. That said, I do watch a few booktubers like here and there, but I haven't really like gone deep into that world. But anyway, there are a lot of people out there on YouTube talking about books. So I read a lot. I track my books. I think for the year, I want to say 55 books read this year. So I do tend to read more than the average person, and I actually read books. I don't do any audiobooks. So when I say I read 55 books, I mean I really truly read 55 books. I didn't listen to like half of them. And I'm not knocking those of you that count audiobooks towards your books read tally for the year. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying none of those were audiobooks. I've actually read those. I have, at any given time, usually 2 to 3 books I'm reading. Most of the time just 2. So I'm always reading one on my Kindle at bedtime because it is backlit. I have a Kindle Paperwhite, like a couple years old. I love it. because I don't have to use a book light and it's not like a harsh glare. It's a very soft backlight. If anybody likes to read in bed at night, I highly recommend the Kindle Paperwhite. For years and years before the Paperwhite, I had a Nook, and that is like an LED bright light. And even with me turning that all the way to the very lowest setting, it tended to be a little too bright and kind of hurt my eyes. So the Kindle Paperwhite is awesome. So I'm always reading something on that at bedtime. And when I travel, I like to take that as well. But I don't generally read much on my Kindle Paperwhite other than at bedtime. And then I like to have a physical copy of a book, which is what I will read at work on lunch breaks, although lately I've been stitching. And I will also read that usually like in the living room, like unwinding in the evening, or on the weekends. Like I might sit down and read a few chapters of a physical book. So I usually just have two, but every so often I'll have a third in the mix for some reason or other. So anyway, so I don't usually don't sit and read for more than 30 minutes to an hour a day in one setting, but between all that I get quite a lot of reading done. So hence it's September 11th and I'm at 55 books read for the year. Here are some of my books. These two shelves of course go all the way up. I at one point got rid of all of my physical books and was just strictly using Kindle or Nook, whichever. I sold all of my physical books and I was just doing ebooks. And at some point I started buying physical books again. I can't remember exactly what triggered that, but here we are, and I can't stop buying books now, so hence my plans for a beautiful library someday. So let me show you some stitching, because you know, we could be here forever talking about books. And I will talk to you about some books I've been reading, but primarily I know you guys are here for the cross stitch, although actually that's probably not true. If you're here, you're probably in love with books too. Well, whatever. Let's talk about cross stitch too. Let me show you some things I've actually finished over the years related to cross stitch things I've finished over the years that are literary. I don't have a lot. Surprise, surprise. So the first thing I have is, this is a sampler girl pattern. It's called Jane Austen to Eleanor's Room. And it's a quote from Sense and Sensibility. Eleanor went to her room where she was free to think and be wretched. I love this. I actually have so many sampler girl patterns, and you will see them in my stash. I'm going to show you. Sampler Girl does so much Jane Austen, and for that I love it. I love her very much. But this is just this was a fun quick stitch, and I love Sense and Sensibility. I love all of Jane Austen's books, but my favorite is Emma. So just throwing that out there. I know Pride and Prejudice is most people's favorite. My favorite is Emma. I loved Emma. Movie-wise, I do love Pride and Prejudice. So that's one. And then I have, don't ask me to pronounce this. Nolit. I've heard it. I just can't. It's not coming to me. It's like Nolit. You know what? I'm not going to try. This is from Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It means don't let the bastards get you down. It's Latin, and I don't speak Latin. This was an Etsy pattern. I apologize because I don't have the designer off the top of my head, but a really quick stitch. And Margaret Atwood actually yesterday released a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. I believe it's called The Testaments. I'm going to have to check that out. I do enjoy Margaret Atwood quite a bit. She's not like my favorite, but I have enjoyed everything I've read by her. Let's talk about books for a second. This is my young adult shelf here, and this is my grown-up book kind of shelf. I am not snobby about literature. I will read the serious, highbrow, like Pulitzer Prize winning, real literature, and I will read the light, fluffy, young adult stuff, and I will read this, like, trashy vampire books. I have a very special place in my heart for trashy vampire books. I mean, I will read anything. I read everything, and I love all genres. I love a good, fluffy, like, easy, turn your brain off kind of read. And I also like to delve into something like a little more serious. So I read it all. I will say probably my favorite genre is fantasy slash, fantasy. Like a little bit of sci-fi, but I'm not super into sci-fi. I'm definitely more into fantasy. So like my all-time favorite is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've read that several times over my life, and I'm about due for a reread. That is my all-time favorite, but I mean, I have lots of favorites. But yeah, whatever. I will admit I've been reading a ton of young adult lately. I kind of fell back into it. Young adult is, like rejuvenated my love of reading about 10 years ago. I've always been a reader my whole life, but I don't know, just as an adult, being busy, being in school, working, like I just wasn't reading as much. I was reading like maybe 10 books a year. And then I don't really remember how or why, but somehow like someone told me to read The Hunger Games. And this was ages ago. And I read it, and I just like, you know, it just blew my mind. I went and got the second book, Catching Fire, and the third book wasn't out yet, Mockingjay. I do remember that. And so I read Catching Fire. It ends on this huge cliffhanger. And then I had like that pain of waiting for the next book. But that series like just lit a fire in me. And then I just read like all the young adult I could get my hands on, and I got totally burned out on it. That genre, I do love young adult, but it gets very repetitive. Twilight like really blew up young adult way back when, what was it, 15 years ago? And then it was like everybody had to write a vampire book, and then everybody had to write a werewolf book, and then like Hunger Games brought about this like dystopian society trend, and so then everybody had to write a book about that, and that was when I really got burned out. I loved the Hunger Games very much, but it just was copied so much, and I couldn't, and some of it's just not good. Like some of the books just aren't great. And I just got really burned out, and I set it aside for several years. And then recently I've gotten back into it, and I don't know that I could really pinpoint why, but I did. So here we are. Let me show you more cross stitch, because I feel like I just went away there for 5 minutes. I didn't stitch this. This was a gift in the last year, the Harry Potter Smalls Exchange, which was hosted by Candy Stitches and Minty Stitcher. I think it was like September, October, they hosted this Harry Potter Smalls Exchange, and they're doing it again this year, and I'm so excited. I believe tomorrow or a day after I get to find out who I'm matched up with and who I get to stitch for. So anyway, Audrey, Stitchy Witch 42, was assigned to me. And this is what she stitched for me, and it is not small. And this is a pattern from Etsy. She did a beautiful flat fold finish. She did a really, really, really nice job. But yeah, it's the Harry Potter Smalls Exchange, but this is like an 8x11, so not so small, but I'm not complaining. I absolutely adore this. It's gorgeous. She did, you know, just flawless stitching and finishing. So the finishing is super cute. She got on the back, she has this awesome Daily Profit fabric. And then it's just a flat fold. She probably used like Vanna's method, if I had to guess. And then inside fabric, you really can't see it, but it's, I mean, you can see it a little bit. It's this really cool, like smoky black. It's really cool. So it just props up on my shelf. It's usually behind me on my shelf over there. I did put a different background for you guys so you can see my books. I have piles of books, like, I can't show you on camera. I have big piles of books right here. Don't fit on my shelf. I've got to do some rearranging. Right now my books are not fitting on my shelf. So yeah, Audrey did that for me. Thank you, Audrey. I still love this. And I'm really excited to see what I get this year in the exchange. And I don't know what I'm going to stitch yet. I have like 10 ideas. Like I have patterns. I have things I can stitch. I want to wait and see who I get matched up with, because we fill out a little survey about like what house we're in and who our favorite characters are. So I want to see what my person has to say, and then I can pick my pattern. Okay, and the last stitching I have is, this is a Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. This was a 2017 SAL. I believe it's called, I don't know what it's called, I'll be honest. Fairy Tales? Something? Oh, Happily Ever After SAL. Duh. Happily Ever After SAL. So this is bookish because these are all fairy tales. And I'm going to actually reframe this because it doesn't quite fit right. And I found a frame for it and I just have to do that. So I'll show you guys soon once it's reframed. Okay, so those are some of my finishes. And then I have tons of whips and I have tons of stash to show you guys. So much. But before we get into that, let's talk about books just for a minute, a little bit more. I want to talk to you guys about what I've been reading lately. And I told you, it's a lot of young adult. So I'm not going to go through all 55 books I've been reading lately. That would be nuts. So let me tell you about what I've read really recently and loved. I've loved a lot of things, but I narrowed myself down to 3 series. Okay. So first of all, backstory. There is a lovely person on, she's on Flosstube and Instagram. Her name is Andrea. Her Instagram is Stitchy Bookworm, and that's her Flosstube as well. And I don't even remember why we started talking. I can't remember. But somehow we started messaging on Instagram. I don't remember why. Probably she posted something and I was like, oh my God, I love that book. And then we started talking. So anyway, we've been chatting and we were chatting about books and we both wanted to read. Well, we both want to read like a lot of the same books, but at this particular moment in time, we both wanted to read this same book. So I was like, let's read it together. Like just you and me, a little read along. And it was so fun. We had so much fun. And the book we chose was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is the paperback. I loved it so much, I went and got the hardcover, which isn't as fun, I'll be honest. Hardcover, kind of boring. Paperback, really cute. So basically we both like tore through this in like, maybe 5 days. And we had a blast because we mostly kept pace with each other. And of course we wouldn't spoil. If one of us pulled ahead, we didn't spoil. But it was just so fun to be like, oh my God, okay, like this just happened. This was so crazy. And just to like laugh about little things in the book. It was really, really, really fun. And I highly recommend this book. This book is a blast. It's hard to describe this book without spoiling it. Okay, I'll read you the back. Simon Snow is the main character. He's the worst chosen one who's ever been chosen. That's what his roommate Baz says. And Baz might be evil and a vampire and a complete git, but he's probably right. So those are the two main characters. It's a play off of Harry Potter. It's this whole long story. Okay, so Rainbow Rowell first wrote this book, Fangirl, which I haven't read yet. And this is about a girl who's like going to college, and she writes fan fiction for this world that Simon Snow lives in. It's a Harry Potter. I'm not explaining this well. I'm really not. I know. In this fictional world, the Simon Snow series is basically the Harry Potter of this world. And this girl writes fan fiction for this world. I haven't read this book, but I will. So anyway, this book, I guess like the author was so inspired by this book that she's like, I'm going to write a Simon Snow novel, like for real, like not just like I made a mess. Not just for fiction, but like I'm going to actually write this book. So then she did. So this, if you love Harry Potter, this is like older Harry Potter. They're like 16, 17, 18 or something like that. So yes, when you read it, you're going to be like, wow, that's kind of a Harry Potter ripoff a little bit, but she changes things enough that it's not just a Harry Potter ripoff, but it is like magical boarding school Harry Potter. I know that was a terrible explanation. I'm sorry. All I can say is this book is awesome, and I recommend it. The sequel, Wayward Son, comes out September 24th, and we're definitely going to buy that, and we're going to read that together, Andrea. We've already talked about it. It's happening. Okay, so then we had so much fun doing that we were like, okay, we need to like keep doing this. Like, what do you want to read next? Because again, we have so many books in common that we like want to both read. So we were like, okay, well, I kind of want to read this series. Well, I kind of want to read this series. I want to read this series. And so what we settled on was Nevernight by J. Kristoff. And this is a trilogy. The second book is called God's Grave. And the third book is called Dark Dawn. And it came out last week. So I need to go pick that up. This series is frequently dumped into young adult, but it is not young adult. The main protagonist, Mia, is 16 years old, and so that is why it gets filed under young adult. But this series is like murder, sex, and craziness. It's not young adult. I mean, I would have definitely read it when I was 14, but some of you might not want your 14-year-olds reading this. Anyway, this series is awesome. I mean, we've only read the first book. We're going to start the second book soon. But she goes to this crazy assassin church to learn how to be a crazy assassin. And it's so good. It is so good. The world building is incredible. Like, the detail that he gets in there. We both loved this series, and we'll read the next two soon. So again, one I will highly recommend, but language warning, there's a lot of cursing in that series. And then finally, we both wanted to do a reread of a series we've both read before and loved, and that is The Raven Boys, which is a series of 4 books. The author, I don't even know how to say her last name. It's Maggie Stiefvater. I guess I've never heard anyone say it out loud. This is a series, I believe, let me see, I think it was 2010 that this first book came out. 2012. I read this series years ago, and I loved it so much that I wanted to do a reread. So here's the series. It's 4 books. I got them in hardcover because I loved it so much. So the reason we wanted to do a reread is that there is a new book coming out. It's like it's a spin-off series. It's coming out November 4th, I believe, and it's called Call Down the Hawk, and it is a book about one of the main characters in this series. So he's getting his own spin-off, and we're super excited. So we were both like, let's reread. So we both just finished The Raven Boys. I finished it day before last, and I think she finished it day before that or something. So anyway, again, we both read it before, but it's been a few years, and it's really fun sometimes to reread a series like this and pick up new things. And again, we're having a blast being like, oh my gosh, like I totally missed that the first time around, or whatever, just revisiting characters we fell in love with. So I've started the second book, which is The Dream Thieves, which is a book about Ronan, one of the characters. He's my favorite. I kind of have a huge crush on Ronan. And then the third book is Blue Lily, Lily Blue. And the fourth book is The Raven King. So I will be reading all of those before November 4th, when Call Down the Hawk is released. So I highly recommend those. Those are just 3 book series that I am loving. That all 3 actually, I guess, have new books coming out. So Carry On has the sequel, Wayward Son, coming out the end of this month. Nevernight Trilogy, the 3rd book, was just released last week. And Raven Boys Quartet has a new book coming out in November. So if you want something to read, I would check those out. I loved all of those series. Let's get back to stitching. I guess let's do whips. Let's do whips, and then we'll do stash. So I'm just going to grab stuff and show you. Okay, so Owl Forest Embroidery has a free Wizard of Oz SAL going on, and I need to print the new parts because I think they've released 5 of 6. And these are just the first 3 parts. So I need to go print the newer ones. I've only completed part 1. This is a 36 count linen called, I believe, Meadow Mist, something like that. I got it at my LNS. I think it's called Meadow Mist. It's really pretty. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but it's like this tealy, greenish, bluish. It's pretty. And that's part 1. It's done. I made Dorothy's shoes silver, like the book. So they're not red in the book. But I saw part 5, which has the Wicked Witch. And they didn't make her green like the movie. But I was looking at her and I kind of want to make her green like the movie. So I feel like if I make that change, then I need to make Dorothy's shoes red. So I might pull those out and make them red. But we'll see. I think I might do that though. Okay, what else do we have in here? Oh, this is my oldest whip right now. I really need to get back to it, and it's a total joke how much I have done on it. This was a design by Shannon Christine, but it was for Cross Stitch Collection magazine. It was February 2017 was the issue. And this is an Emma quote, actually. This is from Emma. It's Mr. Knightley and Emma. Perhaps it is our imperfections that make us so perfect for one another. It's very sweet. And I have the tiniest little start, and I really have no excuses because I actually love this. I don't know why I haven't stitched more on it. You know what it is? It's one of those that I'm always like meaning to get back to. I'm always saying like I'm going to, I'm going to get back to it. And then I just don't. So this is all I have done. A frame. That's it. Pitiful. And it's my oldest WIP, and I love it. It's not like, oh, I don't want to I don't feel like stitching that. Like, I actually adore it. I have no excuse. I need to stitch it. Okay. So that will happen, I promise. This is from an Etsy designer. This one is Lizzie Bennett. The designer is Mrs. Pagati. She's on Etsy. And this is the cross stitch. It's a full coverage. It's like a HAID. It's a lot of stitching. To try to make it easier on myself, my plan is to just stitch Lizzie and this swirly frame, to not stitch all this blue here, to let the fabric do that, and to not stitch all this striping here. I love the way it looks, but that's just full coverage craziness. So, you know, just to try to make it a little bit more doable for me. I'm stitching this on 36 count Zephyr by Picture This Plus. And I don't have much work on this one. I love this one because it's so creepy because her eyes, her eyes haven't been stitched yet. Oh, it's hilarious to me. So there's her face with her creepy eyes, or lack of eyes. In companion to that, I have Mr. Darcy somewhere. Hug Your Darcy. So Mrs. Pagati on Etsy has actually released some more since I bought these. She has a Jane Austen one too, which she's always had. And then I think she released another Lizzie Bennett, like a different one. She has a Jane Eyre, which I own already. I don't know. She released some more literary themed patterns. So anyway, so Mr. Darcy is being done on 36 count Mellow by Picture This Plus. And I have like a cheek. I have a cheek on him. That's it. And same thing as Lizzie, I'm just going to stitch him and the frame. The fabric will be the gold, and I'm not going to do all this striping. So basically there'll be two like circular finishes when I'm done. And then I also, like I said, I did get Jane Eyre, which is a Bronte story. Same thing, not going to stitch all this, not going to stitch all that. Just gonna do her in the frame. And I'm doing this on 36 count Vesper by Picture This Plus. And I don't have a lot started on that one either. That's her ear and her cheekbone. Okay, what else do we have in here? This one, unfortunately, I only have a black and white printout. This is Fiddlesticks AU, which is an Etsy designer, and it is, it's called Elevensies, and it's a Hobbit theme. Well, it's Lord of the Rings, the first book, but it's a Hobbit quote. Breakfast, second breakfast, Elevensies, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper. And I'm not doing any of like the called for colors or anything on this one. I'm just, I have a piece of Weeks. I believe it's Kudzu is the color. And I am just, it's a 32 count. And I'm just grabbing like random Weeks and Classic Colorworks, and I'm just gonna do each of the words in a different color, but that's all I have so far. The reason a lot of these don't have a lot of stitching is because they were my 50 starts for Stitch Mania in 2018, and so I only got to work on them for like a day, so that's why a lot of them aren't, there's not a lot going on some of these. This one is a Soda Stitch pattern. It's called Fairy Tale Land 2. And it has all sorts of beautiful fairy tales. And this is on a hand-dyed fabric I found at like a thrift store. It's Stitchin' Station in Salt Lake City. I don't know if that's still open. And it's called Nutmeg. It's called Nutmeg. It's actually a really pretty fabric. Isn't that pretty? And there's actual like walnut crystals on it still. I don't know if you can see that. But it's really pretty, the color. And I've got some of Snow White stitched. So again, that was just one day of stitching. This is all I got into that one. But I have stitched for my sisters. I don't have it here. I did stitch Belle and the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. So I took that little section and stitched it on a small. And it turned out super duper cute. Super cute. Primitive Hair, Jane Eyre. I love this one. And it says, I am no bird and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will. I love Jane Eyre. She is a badass. This is on Nikki's Creation 32 count linen, and the linen is called Old England. I love her linen. I love Nikki's linen. I unfortunately have very little done on this. Yeah, one day of stitching, that's it. So that's all I got done. The linen is beautiful. So sidebar, Primitive Hair has a lot of literary themed patterns. I don't own a ton of them because I know they're not going anywhere. Like I can always grab them off her Etsy. And they're a little bit, I'm not going to say they're like expensive, but they're not like $5 patterns. They tend to be like $14, $16. So I just haven't like grabbed them all, but she has a lot of fairy tale themed patterns and literary themed patterns. So that is certainly somebody you can go check out if you're looking for some stuff like this. There is also another Italian designer called The Little Stitcher, also on Etsy, and I do have some of her patterns as well. And she has a bunch that I still need to pick up. She has a lot of Bronte patterns, like the Bronte sisters. I need to go grab some from her still. Okay, so then I have another Sampler Girl pattern, Her Thoughts, a Jane Austen sampler. And unfortunately, it's only printed in black and white, and I'm sorry. And it says, her own thoughts and reflections were habitually her best companions. And that's from Mansfield Park. And ain't that the truth? This was another one where I only got to work on it for one day. And it's a mystery. It's like a 28 count mystery even weave. And that was as far as I got in one day. Habitually. So the funny thing about these Sampler Girl patterns is like they're not a lot of stitching. I just have to get to them. Just got to do it. It's not that much to do. I just need to sit down and do it. This one is a Brooks Books. It's the Little Women. I love these patterns. They're so cute. This is Meg, but here's all 4 of them. And I'm going to stitch them like that, like kind of laid out in a long row. They're very sweet. And I think I only got to, I think I had 1 or 2 days on this one. I need to get back to these. And it's a mystery, or it's a 28 count Monaco by Charles Craft, and it's the tea dye. I didn't do anything else to it. It's just the way it came on the roll. Stone Street Stitch Works. I got this off Etsy. This is called Book House. This is a Neil Gaiman quote. I lived in books more than I lived anywhere else. I think every book lover needs that. The trees, those aren't leaves, those are books. Those are open books. I'm switching up all the colors on this. It's an exude linen. It's called, it's a 36 count. It's called Dark Desert. And I got a little more done on that one. Ooh, that's the color. It's a tomatoey, rusty kind of color. It wasn't, when I zoom in, it kind of loses that. There's where I am on that. I love that one. It's not very big. Here's another primitive hair. This is Christmas at Orchard House. This is a Little Women Christmas pattern. I love Little Women so much. I love that book and I love the movie. This is on, it's called for DMC. Picture This Plus Relic. It's 32 count. I only got to work on this for one day as well. So when I zoom in, the color kind of changes on me. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's all I've got on that one. Again, it's kind of a small pattern. It won't take that long to finish. I'm going to lump this one in. This is Samplers and Stories, which is another Etsy seller, and it's the Grimoire, the Herbal Grimoire, and it's literally a book, which is why I put it in here. In this video, I mean. And this is a 40 count exude in dark sand. And I'm doing it with a Classic Color Works hickory sticks, good old hick sticks. And that's as far as I got on that one. So yeah, you can see a lot of these I only got a day or two of stitching in. So I don't have a whole lot to show you. This is a pattern by Tempting Tangles. It's called Persuasion. It's called Persuasion, but it has all of the Jane. It's got Emma, Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility. It doesn't have Pride and Prejudice or Mansfield Park or Northanger Abbey, but you know, it's got more than just Persuasion on there. I am stitching this with Dinky Dyes Silks, which are what's called for, but I think I had to swap a few out with what I had in stash. And this is a 36 count Picture This Plus, and it's called Ale. And that was a day of stitching, and I'm cutting it real close on the border there. Look how little that's gonna be. So that's how far I got on that, which is not far at all. What's new? Another Sampler Girl pattern. This is called In the Meadow with Jane Austen. It's really, I think this one is really, really pretty. And it says, there's no charm equal to tenderness of heart. And this isn't from one of her books. I think this is from a letter. I don't know. I could be making, and maybe it's from a book. I don't know. Some of these are Jane Austen quotes from letters, and some are from her novels. This is a 28 count Jobelin. It's just like an ivory. And that's my one day of stitching I got on that. Another Sampler Girl, Jane Austen. This is called At Home with Jane Austen. This is the one that's from one of her letters. Nope, I lied. This is from Emma. There's nothing like staying home for real comfort. This is a 28 count Charles Craft Irish linen, which is not even. And it's distorting my letters a little bit and making them long. That's as far as I got on that one day of stitching. You're picking up a theme here, I'm sure. Another Sampler Girls. This one is a Bronte, Emily Bronte not Jane Austen. This is a Wuthering Heights inspired. On the Moors with Emily Bronte. On a bank of heath in the middle of the moors with the bees humming dreamily among the bloom. And this also is 1 day of stitching on a 28 count Irish linen. And that's where we got. All right. And this is my last one of 1 day of stitching. This is another Sampler Girl Sense and Sensibility sampler. And then I apologize, it's in black and white again. This is from Sense and Sensibility, obviously, but it's a quote from Shakespeare. It's Mary Ann's like favorite Shakespeare quote that she recites to Willoughby, who ends up being a scoundrel. I'm not reading this whole quote. It's a Shakespearean quote. It's really pretty. I just don't feel like reading it, I'll be honest. This is a 36 count Mellow by Picture This Plus, and I am really playing like margin chicken with this one. This is how far I got, and this is how much space I gave myself. Which is not a lot. But wow, it's really pretty. Okay, now I have a few more whips, but where I've gotten more than 1 day on them. This is a Mill Hill Buttons and Beads. It's from their Christmas Village series, and it's called The Bookseller. I have all of the stitching done. I just need to do the beading. So I need to sit down and do that beading before Christmas so I can display it this year at Christmas. So there's all the stitching without the beading. This is an old whip as well that I need to finish. This is The Bookshelf by Little House Needleworks. I've read all of these books and all of these authors, which is fun. This is on 36 count Winter Moon fabric. But I subbed, it calls for like, I think it just calls for DMC. Yeah, it calls for DMC, but I subbed all the DMC for like Classic Colorworks and Gentle Arts Fancy Floss. So here's how far I am on this. I also did not leave myself very much margin here. I'm half done. However, I think the top half will go faster than the bottom half. So the top half is more words. So I think I could get it done, you know, pretty quick. I'm glad I switched out the DMC because I do love the way the Fancy Floss is looking. I think this is just so pretty. So pretty. I have all of these books on my bookshelf as well. Sense and Sensibility, The Secret Garden, Little Women, and Wuthering Heights. All right, and then my last whip is Suburban NUI, Jane Austen Stitch Along. Here's a not great picture. This Stitch Along has completed. All the parts are released. It's all of her books. I'm still on part 1. This is on an XJU Designs fabric. It's 36 count and it's called Dark Mountain. It was like the October 2018 fabric of the month, I think. Love the way it looks. Here's the fabric. It's really pretty. And here's where I'm at on Sense and Sensibility, part 1. I love this design. I love this piece. The fact that I never moved beyond part 1 is not a reflection on the design or my love for the design. Just haven't gotten around to it. Okay, so I have some fully kitted stuff, and then I just have some stash. One thing, though, it's not quite a whip, but it was. This is a restart that I haven't restarted yet. I have it completely kitted, though. So, Chatelaine has a pattern called, I believe it's called Alpine, am I making this up? Alpine Garden Mandala. At some point, someone contacted her and was like, hey, this would totally work as like an Outlander inspired piece if you just maybe wanted to like change a few things. So she did. She made a couple of modifications and made it an Outlander inspired piece. So what it's going to look like sort of is like this. That's like a mock-up. She made some little tweaks to make it, you know, she put like the Fraser plaid in, and a few other little things to make it the Outlander edition. I had started this. I did not like the fabric. Even, I bought everything for it too. Like a ton of silks. Oh my gosh. So many silks, you guys. It's like crazy. So I have like all the silks, all the sparklies, you know, all the petite treasure braids. And then I went and got the fabric and I still haven't started it. And I don't know why, because I do love it. And the fabric I picked is Fabric Flair Historic Green. And I do love this fabric and I'm very excited about how it's going to look on there, and I just need to start it. And I keep this in a So Much to Love Outlander bag, which is beautiful. Okay, so kitted up stuff that I haven't started yet. How long is this video? I don't even know. We're at an hour. Are we at an hour? And I have so much to show you. This is gonna be a movie like Jessie Marie. Okay. Miss Bingley's Library by Plum Street Samplers. I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library. Story of my life right there. Because this video is running so long, I'm not showing you all the fabric on all these. I'm telling you that they're kitted up, but let's not get into all that. This is an Etsy designer, Tanya Amity, and it's called Fight Like a Girl. It's got Harry Potter, it's got Chronicles of Narnia, it's got Pippi Longstocking, it's got more than that, Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, Wendy from Peter Pan. It's got some good stuff on here. It's a bookshelf. Some badass fictional women on there. This is Cute Patterns by Maria on Etsy, and it's called Fairy Tale for the Night. And it's a little witchy girl with a fox reading a book. Isn't that cute? I thought so. Oh, this one is so pretty. I don't know the designer. It's one of those Etsy designers. I don't even know what it's called because that's not English. If anyone really needs to know, I can find it for you. Actually, I'm pretty sure my last video I linked this in the Dropbox. It's a tower of watercolor books. I think it just looks awesome. This is another Etsy one. It's called The Snitch. And it is the Snitch from Harry Potter. It says, I open at the close. It's very little stitching and then a ton of back stitching. That'll be a really quick one if I just sit down and do it. This is a Game of Thrones pattern. I love that series. We've talked about this before. It's called Baby Daenerys. Look how cute that is. Again, I believe I linked this in my last video. Here's one. It's going to be a restart. I've actually started this before, but I didn't measure my fabric right, and I was like, I had stitched like all of Lizzie, and then I realized it wasn't gonna fit. So this is Primitive Hair, Pride and Prejudice. And I love this one so much. So that's gonna be a start eventually on fabric that will fit. This is another Etsy seller. This is Mandarinks Designs on Etsy. And it's Harry, Ron, and Hermione and Hagrid rowing to Hogwarts for the first time. It's so pretty. I've seen people stitch this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, not in person. I've only seen it like, you know, on Instagram. But it was gorgeous. This is another Plum Street Samplers, A Gentleman's Daughter. He is a gentleman and I am a gentleman's daughter. So far we are equal. Super pretty. I know this is not like the intention necessarily, but I get kind of like a July 4th patriotic theme from that. Just the red, white, and blue. But that's not what she was going for. In Owl Forest Embroidery, there's actually 3 of these. I have the other 2 in my stash here, but this one I've actually picked fabric for. So it's Owl Forest Embroidery, and it's not in English. What are you called? I don't know. It's Elizabeth and Darcy at Pemberley. And it's really pretty. And then finally, in my kitted up, is another Etsy pattern by Maria Bravko, which is Cute Patterns by Maria. And it's called Books and Coffee. And I really kind of want to start this one because it's all fall themed. And that works for me. None of those are small patterns. Oh, I have one more whip I forgot to show you, and I'm super excited about this one. So, this is what last week, Cunning Cross Stitch announced they're doing a SAL. It's called Letters from Hogwarts. Stitch Your Own Adventure. It's completely free. Google Cunning Cross Stitch and you will find it. It's a free SAL and it's a big one. And it's super awesome. What's been released so far is amazing. Let me show you what the border's gonna look like. So here's what the border's gonna look like. And then each little section will get filled in. But at the top, we've got Hogwarts Express and Hogwarts and some owls. And so far, it's stitching up amazingly. And the very first part of the Choose Your Own Adventure was to choose your wand. And the wand goes right here in the middle, right here. And you choose your wand by rolling a die, one dice. And then like rolling it like 3 times to figure out what wood and what tip and what handle your wand is. I just picked a variegated. I picked Gentle Arts Brown Bear for my wand because I just like the look of it. So I didn't roll the dice for that. But then for my wand, I did. And so here's where I'm at on this. The January 1st, like the real stitch along starts. But for right now, it's just like I'm stitching the frame. And so I started down here in the center to like get up to do my wand. I love how it's looking. I think it's looking so good. This is DMC Etoile for the gold and the blue. I wanted to, it's not what he called for. I just wanted some sparkle. I don't know how well it's sparkling. I love the way my wand looks. I love the way the frames look. I'm just in love with it. These needle minders were enamel pens that I got at Target. So at Target, where like the cards, like the football and baseball cards are and the magic cards are up front by the registers, it's been a couple of years, like maybe 2 years. They had these blind like these pouches of Harry Potter enamel pens, and there were like 8 different pens that could be in there, and you didn't know what you were gonna get. And so I bought a few of them, and I got Snape, Ron, Hermione, and then I got a Ravenclaw one. I'm a Gryffindor, y'all. I am not a Ravenclaw. Let me tell you, for my Harry Potter exchange, I'm hoping that the one I get is a Ravenclaw so I can send her that pen. So anyway, they're pens, and I just took the backs off and put magnets on and made them into needle minders. They're awesome. So they're keeping me company. But yeah, this is looking so good. I can't wait to get the frame done. Oh, the fabric, I dyed myself, and I'm so happy with how it came out. So this is 28 count Monaco, like that Priscilla and Chelsea like to buy. And so it was like a cream color. I got some Rit dye. I used tan and dark brown, and this is how my fabric came out, and I just absolutely love it. It is like exactly what I pictured in my head. It just came out so perfect. So yeah, there's that. Okay, let's do some more stash. You guys have asked me for a flip through of this book, and I will do that eventually, I promise. Sorry, there's some smuts on it. That's kind of gross. This is Veronique Anginja. Fables and Fairy Tales to Cross Stitch. Again, someday we'll get a flip through of this. But it is, I showed you guys some in one of my videos. It's Fables and Fairy Tales to Cross Stitch. Let me just show you one so you can kind of get an idea of kind of like what it looks like, which is beautiful. Here's Beauty and the Beast. So none of them are like humongous, but they're very beautiful and detailed. Here's Snow White and her 7 dwarfs. So flip through coming, I promise, someday. Okay. Let's do some stash and then we're out of here. Holy crap. This is so much longer than I thought because I talked about books for too long. I got this off 123 Stitch. It's a Russian designer. Le Point de Croix. Maybe it's French and not Russian, huh? I don't know. Her name's Russian, but I don't know. I got this off 123 Stitch. And how cute are these little guys? I actually tried to dye some fabric so I could do that one sooner than later. The fabric didn't turn out right. So I still need to dye something for that. This is Natalie Cross Stitch off Etsy. It's called Owl Harry Potter. It's really cute. Okay, and then a series of, again, you've seen some of these recently because I had just bought them and showed them in my last video. This designer is Mia, M-I-A, X Stitch on Etsy. And she's done these beautiful Harry Potter snow globes, and there's 8 of them. So this one is Hogsmeade. And then we've got, these are hard to hold up all at once. We've got the Burrow. We've got Hogwarts Express. Privet Drive. I want to do all of these, all 8 of them. This is Hogwarts. This is Godric's Hollow. Diagon Alley. Shell Cottage. I'm sorry I'm kind of going through these fast, but I still have a bunch, so I just want to get a move on. This is a freebie from the Little Stitcher. It's the Jane Eyre sampler. Kind of awesome, right? This is a pattern by, I found this at the Crafty thrift store. It's Under the Rainbow is the designer, and it's a Christmas Carol. So it's a Dickens themed Christmas Carol pattern. It says, I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. This is from the winter issue of Primitive Needle and Punch Stitcher magazine. It was issue number 4. It's called Carrie's Stocking. It's a Little House on the Prairie themed pattern. This is another Etsy pattern. It's called Visit Hogsmeade. It's a full coverage, so I haven't been super gung-ho. I love the design, but it's quite an undertaking. This is a Mandarinks Designs pattern. It's I don't think I have what it's called on here, but it's Bilbo's house from The Hobbit. Yeah, she doesn't have the name of it, but it's by Mandarinks. So it's Bilbo's door at Christmas. Another full coverage. This is another, I'm not showing you some of these just because I don't know who they're by. This is another Etsy pattern. I don't know the designer. And I'm going to, excuse me. It's called Finding Happiness. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light. So it's a Harry Potter themed pattern. This is another one. It's from Etsy. It's the Deathly Hallows, but in rainbow, which makes me happy. This one is by I don't know how she says it. It's LKA Cross, Lika Cross. She's on Etsy, and it's called Winter is Coming. So that's a Game of Thrones inspired. This one is, I cannot even begin to pronounce it. This designer on Etsy. It's XRESTYK. I don't know how you say that. And it's called Always. I tried to stitch that at one point and change up all the colors, and it was a disaster, so that just needs to be redone. Here's my other Al Forrest embroidery. I said there was a trio. One is called Pride and Prejudice Netherfield, and one is called Pride and Prejudice Longbourn. So I'm guessing the other one is Pride and Prejudice Pemberley. So here's Longbourn. And this one is Netherfield. Netherfield Hall is let at last. Brooks Books has a Little Mermaid series. So not the movie, but the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. But she's only released 3 of the 10 or 12 or whatever, so what she has out so far is Little Mermaid, King Triton, and Grandmother. This is another Etsy pattern. And it's just a beautiful girl reading a book. So see, I'll buy stuff like this. Like, it's not any particular book. But she's reading a book that's awesome. So this is, I linked this in my last video if you want to hunt this one down. I don't know what it's called. It's a Harry Potter pattern. Platform 9 3/4 is probably what it's called. I linked this one in my last video also. It's an owl standing on a stack of books, and there's a bookshelf behind him. But what absolutely killed me about this pattern is it says Lord of the Coffee Rings as one of the books. Lord of the Coffee Rings. And the other one says the Coffee Drinkers. And then the other one says one brew over the cuckoo's nest instead of one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I think that's hilarious. I don't know when I'm going to start it. I also linked to this one in my last video. Another Hogwarts Harry Potter themed pattern. I think I linked this one as well. It's by Cute Patterns by Maria. It's called Diagon Alley. This one is, I can't remember who the designer is on Etsy. It's called Battle of Hearts. It's Lizzie and Darcy. I love this one. Love it. Another one I showed in my last video, the Etsy shop is Sweet Annette, A-N-N-E-T, and it's called Hogwarts. I linked this one in my last one. It's Harry Potter book. This one is another Little Stitcher pattern. It's the Little Match Girl. That's such a sad story. So another Cute Patterns by Maria. I really love this one. It's Hogwarts in the Bank. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram do this one. It looks awesome. And oh my gosh, I think that's it, because the rest are ones I can't show you because they're freebies where I only have the pattern. So we did it. We made it. I'm sorry I like flew through that last bit, but I'm like super thirsty. I need to go get some coffee, and I'm just like, I'm tired and I want to go stitch, and like I just needed to be done. Okay. So I hope that inspired some of you. Book lovers out there. There was hopefully some patterns you haven't seen before that you now maybe want to go get, or whatever, or don't. Maybe you just like to look. I have so much here. I have so much here. I don't even know where to start. I guess like right now I'm obsessed with this Harry Potter SAL. So this is what I'm going to be working on for the short duration. After that, it's so hard to say because I have like 14 kitted up ready to start projects, and I want to start them all like now, and I don't know where to start. So if you all are feeling really strongly about something, let me know. If you're like, oh my gosh, you have to stitch this one thing, please. Like, maybe I can be persuaded. So that's all I've got for now. I know that there are so many more bookish patterns out there than what I just showed. If you guys have some particular ones that you think I should see, like I've definitely seen like the mainstream ones and maybe just thought I'd pick it up later, or like I can live without that one. But if you have any kind of like obscure ones that you think like I might be into, then like drop me a line below and let me know so I can go take a look and see if, you know, I need to grow this collection a little bit more. Until next time, thanks for watching. See you guys soon. Bye.